Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Today we are continuing our series. This is the second video in a series of our amazing trip to Lebanon. And in today's video, we are up in the Cedars, up in the mountains, Aretz, I think it's called, and amazing cedar forest to visit. We're also going to visit Khalil Gibran's tomb. But first, this is Latina Literati. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, 4,000 years ago, Sumerian adventure story. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, 4,000 years ago, the Cedars of Lebanon are first mentioned in written history. They are called the Cedars of God, and they are divinely protected. It would be much, much later in Roman times when they are also mentioned. Of course, the Romans cut down the cedars to use them, as did the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians cut down whole mountains in order to trade all over the Mediterranean. The cedars. We'll be talking a lot about the Phoenicians in all these videos because they are the first kind of very developed civilization in this entire area. And so these cedars are huge. And what does that mean? It means that the cedars grow very, very slowly. And as you're walking through the cedar groves, the smell is just enchanting. It's just a wonderful smell. The birds are chirping, the butterflies are flying, and you just feel a really special environment in the cedar groves. And there is replanting going on. You can see whole mountainsides being replanted, but the cedar only grows certain centimeters every year. And so it takes 200 years for you to get a good-sized cedar. And once a cedar has grown as high as it can, it actually starts to grow out. And so you see there are cedars in, for example, museums and things that are thousands of years old, and the groves that you're walking through, you know, are at least hundreds of years old, because that's what makes them so big. Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful place to visit. And if I'm not mistaken, it's a UNESCO protected heritage site. Lebanon actually has a lot of UNESCO protected heritage sites, and the cedar groves are a wonderful part of the Lebanese culture and tradition, as well as a symbol on their flag. After we walked through these cedar groves, we drove down to the town of Bisharia. And this Bishari town is where the most famous poet, philosopher of the last century from Lebanon was born. Khalil Gibran was from this mountain Maronite town, although when he was born there, it was part of the Ottoman Greater Syria. He was actually born on the Epiphany, January 6, 1883, in this town. Beautiful town, wonderful mountain vistas, just a very beautiful place. And they would have to emigrate to New York about 10 years later. And so Khalil Gibran actually spends most of his youth in New York City. His teachers quickly recognize his talents, and so he's introduced to people so that he can show his artistic works off and his literary works. And he quickly becomes well known as a young up-and-coming poet and artist. He is sent back to Beirut for high school and then eventually makes his way back to New York, where he will meet his most prominent benefactress, Haskell, and she will basically finance the rest of his life in terms of the works that are produced. And we'll talk about the books in the book section, but I just want to give you a little sense of one of the greatest literary artistic figures in Lebanon for the last century, and really an icon in terms of Lebanese culture. A wonderful, wonderful place to visit. Beautiful paintings of all sorts of not just portraits that Khalil Gibran drew, but also just freehand paintings of different people and different places. So it's a beautiful place to visit in this town of Bishari. And so it's a stone building, so there's like a 10-degree difference in temperature. It's very warm outside, you walk in, it's very cool, and they have spring water coming in, so it's delicious to taste this very fresh spring water that is inside the museum, the library, and the tomb of Khalil Gibran in the mountains of Lebanon. Wonderful, wonderful day. So after all of that, if we could do even more, we drive down to Tripoli for a late lunch, where we have a wonderful lunch right on the Malecon, right on the seashore at a nice restaurant. And then we are surprised with a boat trip to the 7 islands off of the coast of Tripoli. So it's a perfect afternoon, beautiful boat ride, wonderful islands. There's one called Lover's Cove. There's one called the Rabbit Island because it's filled with rabbits. There's one where supposedly a crusader was married. And so really historic little islands that you can just discover on your own. Lots of people enjoying the beautiful day in the sun and in the water and in the sea. Just a magical day, wonderful, perfect day. And I thank the friends that made that day available. Thank you very much. It was just a beautiful day. And now for my favorite part of the video, the book recommendations. And of course, the books have to do with Khalil Gibran in today's video. His most famous book is, of course, The Prophet. And The Prophet is a collection of essays where he talks about everything from life and love and children and education and all sorts of things that are really worthwhile reading. His manner of writing is very beautiful, it's very simple, and it just gets across the philosophical, metaphysical messages that he has. And so here are some of those messages, just really beautiful writings from someone that, now having been to where he was born and understanding that he basically was raised between New York and these incredible mountains in Lebanon, you see the balance and you see how you could definitely have a perspective that is so simple in terms of life, that life really is about caring for others and about ensuring that you let them know and giving your children the freedom to fly. One of his most famous quotes is that one must give roots and wings to one's children. Roots so they know where they come from, and wings to reach the destiny, to reach a place we may not even imagine. Not an easy thing as a mother to do, but I think it's important. So The Prophet, a fabulous book, translated into over 100 different languages, one of the best-selling works of all time. It's right up there. I mean, it's really sold all over the world in almost any language you can imagine. And it's so simple in its message, so beautiful in the collection of essays. So highly recommend that book. The second book that I'm going to recommend is, of course, a collection of his writings, because if you can have one book, having many of his books in your library is even better. Again, all of them are worthwhile reading. He's just a great writer, very inspirational, very beautiful in his method of expressing his ideas. So highly, highly recommend it. So always check your local library. I am sure that your library will have at least The Prophet, if not Khalil Gibran's works. If not, check your local bookstore, because we want to support local businesses. We love our local libraries. We love our local bookstores. And so thank you so much for coming to the end of this video. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think about Khalil Gibran? What are you reading this summer? Let us know. We would love you to subscribe to Latina Literati. We are here as a community to enjoy and discover together. And thank you so, so much for joining us. As always, con mucho cariño, mucho salud, mucho amor. Gracias.